in Mago Reddit. Today's story is
My father misinterpreted a DNA test and threw me out of the house, believing I wasn't his daughter. What I later discovered revealed secrets that no one was prepared to face. I can't describe exactly how I feel right now. I thought I had a home, a family, but a simple document changed everything. The worst part? In some corner of my mind, I always suspected that something was wrong. From my earliest memories, I have felt a constant rejection in my own home. Robert, my father, never hid his preference for Nick, my older brother. At first, I thought it was because he was born a boy and I was born a girl, something my father valued more. However, the reality was much more complicated. It took many years to discover why my father seemed to resent me so much, as if deep down he knew that I did not belong to him. Nick was practically a clone of my father. They shared the same marked features, identical dark brown hair, similar eyes. I, on the other hand, did not resemble either of my parents. I was constantly asked if I had been adopted, something that hurt me deeply. A little over a week ago, everything exploded. During the family dinner, the tension was palpable. My father, usually busy bragging about Nick's insignificant achievements, remained unusually quiet, barely touching his food. Suddenly, he threw some papers on the table. He announced that I was not his biological daughter, but the result of my mother's infidelity. He had carried out genetic tests on both Nick and me, and according to him, the results confirmed his suspicions of years. I was the result of a betrayal. He explained that for that reason he had never considered me enough, he had never managed to love me. My mother, with silent tears, did not utter a word. She did not deny anything, she did not defend me. That answered all my doubts about my father's rejection. I had always known that he didn't love me, but hearing him admit it openly, saying that I never had a place in the family, caused me pain for which I was not prepared. Then he ordered me to leave the house. I was paralyzed, unable to breathe. My father had always been distant, but this was beyond anything I could have imagined. I begged him to reconsider, arguing that none of this was my fault. I had nowhere to go, no one to turn to, but that didn't matter to him at all. His verdict was final, whether I liked it or not. I turned to my mother for help, hoping for some support, but she just shook her head, avoiding my gaze. She wouldn't fight for me, she couldn't even look at me. Nick, sitting across from me, chuckled. He had always enjoyed seeing me suffer, and this situation was no different. In tears, on my knees, I begged to stay, insisting that I had done nothing wrong. I had dedicated my entire life to trying to be the daughter they wanted, only to be discarded as worthless. But my father remained firm, repeating that I was no longer welcome. Before I could process it, he raised his hand and hit me in the face with all his strength, not a simple slap but a violent blow, as if blaming me for the whole situation. That was the final straw. There was nothing left to defend. I took some belongings and left slowly, with no clear destination. I walked slowly, trying to buy time to come up with a plan. I ended up knocking on the door of my friend Sophia, who, when she saw me, quickly took me into her apartment. During the following week, I hardly moved. I didn't leave the apartment, I refused to eat, I didn't want to talk. I curled up in bed and let the days go by. The genetic report remained untouched. On the bedside table, I don't even know why I picked it up when I left. I couldn't look at it, fearing that it would confirm everything and I would really be left without a family. After 7 days of isolation, something changed inside me. I needed to know the truth. When I finally read the document, I looked at it several times in disbelief. I started to tremble for a completely different reason. My father had misinterpreted the results. Nick was the one who didn't share his DNA, not me. Nick, the exemplary son, the adored one, the one placed on a pedestal, wasn't even biologically his. My father had been so obsessed with proving that I didn't belong there that he didn't even bother to interpret the results correctly. His hatred for me had completely blinded him. Everything made sense at that moment. My mother's reaction, her absolute silence, the fear in her eyes. It wasn't just guilt, it was something deeper. She had known it all along. I felt a mixture of rage and a strange satisfaction, when I thought of my father. In his eagerness to confirm that I wasn't his daughter, he had interpreted the results exactly the other way around. He probably thought that the report showed that there was a possibility that I wasn't his daughter, when in reality it indicated the complete opposite. Now I possess this information, knowledge that is capable of destroying the family even more. My father hates me because he believes that I am not his, while he adores Nick. Knowing that Nick is not his biological son would destroy him completely, and that power is now in my hands. I have the power to ruin them all, starting with my father. Yes, the same one who threw me out of the house, even though he had considered me his daughter for years. Although considered is perhaps an exaggeration, as he always treated me like an unwanted guest. Then there's Nick, who enjoyed my expulsion with that stupid little laugh, believing he gained something according to his twisted logic. And finally my mother, who did nothing to protect me. For her, not much changes, she's still unfaithful, but this would alter the family dynamic in unimaginable ways. What do you think is the best way to reveal all this? Update 1. Several days have passed, and I have finally done what was most on my mind: confront my mother. I needed answers, because although I was not surprised by my father's behavior, hers was. Did she really care so little for her own daughter? I did not expect that. I asked to meet her alone, away from the rest of the family. She tried to avoid it with excuses, as if sensing what was coming, but finally agreed. We met in a quiet cafe in the village, and as soon as I sat down, a flood of questions came up. I questioned her about what had hurt me the most, why she didn't defend me. I continued asking why she allowed me to be treated like a stranger all these years. She could have improved my life simply by confessing the truth, but she chose to remain silent while I endured my miserable existence. Her answer was utterly disappointing. She confessed to feeling paralyzed by guilt, not just for her affair, but for how it had affected the whole family. She claimed to have felt trapped between protecting me and keeping the peace with my father, who had become increasingly cold towards her as time went by. She justified her silence as the only way to maintain some family stability, although she now recognized that it was at my expense. I told her that excuse was not credible. Stability in exchange for my self-esteem and mental health? I reminded her that her duty as a mother was to defend me, and she had completely failed. Her guilt or fear, whatever her reason for keeping quiet, did not justify years of negligence and emotional abuse. I also expressed my frustration at being everyone's victim. I made it clear to her that I wasn't interested in the excuses that my father or Nick might invent to justify their treatment of me. I no longer cared about them, but her silence had been the most painful, as she was supposed to be my protector. She apologized, but how could I forgive something like that? I did not hear that apology because she felt genuine regret, but because I confronted her. She never came voluntarily to apologize. She admitted to wishing she had been brave, not having confronted my father for my sake. She admitted to allowing Nick to become the favorite, thinking that would calm my father and save their marriage. Her priorities were clear. First her marriage, then her husband, maybe Nick, and last, if at all, me. Maybe she feels sorry for me, but nobody in that house seems to really love me. I don't regret confronting her. It was necessary, and I was finally able to say what I needed to express. Now I must concentrate on my father and Nick. I can't wait to see their faces when I reveal the truth to them. Maybe I should have done it before talking to my mother. Although I also think that she is such a coward, that she will try to keep this secret until she dies, so I'm hoping to have the exclusive. Update 2. A few more days have passed. After my confrontation with my mother, she contacted me again. She begged to meet me, claiming to have something important to tell me. Honestly, I didn't think I needed to hear her anymore. She had already told me everything essential, explicitly and implicitly, so I didn't need anything additional. I once needed her to act as my mother, but we all know she is not ready for that responsibility. However, something in the way she asked made me think that she might have additional information of interest to me, which led me to change my mind at the last moment. I wasn't expecting much, but as soon as she started talking, I knew this wouldn't be just another round of empty regrets. She confessed that she actually doesn't know who Nick's real father is. How could she not know? I couldn't help but laugh. I asked her directly, how many infidelities does it take to lose count of who the father could be? My words were cruel. I could see they hurt her, but I didn't care. Why should I be kind after everything she has caused, and what she has not avoided for so many years? My mother broke down in tears, trying to win my compassion, justifying herself with feelings of abandonment and lack of love in her marriage. She explained that my father was always cold and distant, even at the beginning of their relationship. She hoped that things would improve after the wedding, but they didn't, and she felt trapped, alone, and desperate to escape the emptiness she experienced at home. I will not defend my father, I am the last person who would do so, but neither will I support my mother. I believe that my father deserved her infidelity, just as she deserves all the consequences of having committed it. But two evils do not produce a good, only destruction. And I was trapped in that destruction by having two irresponsible parents. I emphasized to her that, regardless of her unhappiness, she chose to stay with him, to be unfaithful to me, and to ruin my life. She chose to sacrifice me, her own daughter, to maintain a clearly toxic marriage. I pointed out the irony of staying for stability when no one in our family has ever experienced it. Not even her. The reason she didn't know anything about Nick's father is that she frequented men in bars during that time, describing it as her way of momentarily escaping her unhappiness. She defined herself as foolish, selfish, and regretful for her decisions. I share those adjectives, although I think they are insufficient, and they also apply to my father. It all sounded like those people who only regret it when they are found out, not genuine remorse. Then I made a sarcastic comment about how lucky I had been that Nick looked so much like our father. I joked ironically that he probably had a radar for men with similar features. I meant it as a joke, but as I said it, something changed in his expression. His face froze, his eyes widened, and he took a deep breath, as if he'd had an epiphany. He muttered that there was a possibility he'd never considered, one he hoped was false, but which seemed the most likely. He suggested that Nick's biological father could be my paternal uncle, David, my father's brother. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This was unbelievable, because each new revelation from my mother made things worse, but it mainly hurt my father, which in some twisted way benefited me. My mother confessed to the possibility of having had an affair with her husband's brother, making Nick either my cousin or half-brother. I don't know which classification predominates. I left after that, as she didn't seem to have anything more to tell me. Now I'm afraid to meet her again, because I'm terrified of what she might reveal next. I'm not ready to hear that she had an affair with an alien, or that my father is really her cousin. Every encounter with her brings something new and more frightening. Although the person who should feel a chill down their spine is my father, like the protagonists of horror films when the killer stalks. I think this further widens my options for breaking the good news. I'm glad I was busy to have this conversation with my father, because I would have regretted not having this additional information. Now I wonder if I should wait longer to see what other things I can use to my advantage. Update 3. Shortly after I left, following the confession about my uncle's possible paternity, my mother started flooding me with calls and messages. The problem with these messages was that they opposed my plans to reveal everything and wreak havoc. She begged me not to destroy the family, not to end her marriage, and to consider, and I quote, the whole picture. I may destroy the family, but only those involved. I don't care about Nick's life, my uncle's, my father's, or yours, because they are all despicable people. The more messages I received, the angrier I became. It was never about apologizing to me, but only about their selfish motives to protect their marriage. Although my father knew about the infidelity, he never threw my mother out. She witnessed how they did it to me and thought, better her than me. Well, now I think, better karma than her. I have all the evidence, from the DNA test misinterpreted by my father to all the messages from my mother. At this point, it's purely about revenge. I won't deny it. But neither can they deny that it is a revenge that has been too long in coming in my case. A necessary revenge that will feel wonderful as it advances like an unstoppable tide. It will leave nothing standing. Not my parents' marriage, not the relationship between my brother and my father, not Nick's stupid smile. Yes, I think the latter will give me the most satisfaction. I know that some might question my path to revenge, but they took everything from me and still found new ways to make me suffer. It is time for others to suffer, and no one is better suited to experience it than those who have dedicated themselves to making my life as miserable as possible, especially because they enjoyed it. I will feel no sadness, for now it is my turn to enjoy myself. Addition. I almost forgot, but thanks for clarifying my relationship with Nick. According to what they said, I would be his brother and his cousin at the same time. I also appreciate the joke about our family resembling European royalty. Update 4. Now I can calmly relate what happened with the revelation to my father and Nick, and believe me, I enjoy writing this as much or more than having lived through it. You can ask Sophia, who also witnessed everything, as if she had VIP access to this drama. I asked my father for one last meeting, with the excuse of collecting some belongings, adding that we needed to discuss certain details. Surprisingly, he agreed without resistance. Armed with the genetic evidence, my mother's messages, and my desire for revenge, I arrived prepared to expose everything. As my father had done weeks ago, now it was my turn. The family gathering had been tense since my arrival. My mother seemed nervous to see me, as she was the only one aware of what was going to happen. That must have been a real torture for her. Nick was present, as arrogant as ever, probably thinking that I had come to beg them to let me return. My father maintained his usual seriousness, as if it were a mere bureaucratic formality, an attitude he has always shown towards me. But when I finished what I had come to do, everything changed drastically. I looked at my father and told him that I was returning the DNA tests, as I didn't want to keep them, handing them over to him personally. I added that he should read them more carefully, as the first time he had interpreted them incorrectly. I pointed out that if he looked closely, he would see that above the percentage there was a legend explaining that it indicated the probability of kinship. When he heard me, he began to get anxious and put on his glasses to read better. He examined the document for a minute, while I took the opportunity to observe Nick's and my mother's reactions. Her face paled even more, if that was possible. Nick's expression remained unchanged until I summarized the true meaning of the tests. I was my father's biological daughter, he was not. At that moment, he lost his smile and began to get upset, like my father seconds before. By then, my father was already reacting, and Nick was bombarding him with questions about what the papers really said. My father stared at my mother, now furious. He asked her who Nick's real father was, and I intervened, suggesting the possibility that it was his brother. In reality, there was no such probability, because investigating the paternity tests, the test should indicate some kinship between Nick and my father, but I didn't want to miss the opportunity to mention that, in addition to other men my mother slept with, there was also her own brother-in-law. I told them they would have a lot to discuss, and I told Sophia that we should leave because our mission had been accomplished. From the street you could clearly hear my father and my brother shouting, so everything went according to plan. Days later, I started receiving messages from my father. He left several voice messages and texts until I finally blocked him. The ones I managed to read contained apologies and a desire to get closer, among other things. I have not responded and never will. I am not interested in establishing a relationship with him now, regardless of what a piece of paper says. My mother has not contacted me, but I also blocked her as a precaution. When I blocked my father, I remember doing the same with her and Nick. I'm not expecting any messages from Nick at the moment, but I'd rather avoid it just in case. I don't know what will happen with my family now, but I'm sure of one thing. For them it's not over, but I'm done with them. It's time to enjoy the little bombshell I've dropped and relax. I deserve it. I've been working on this for a long time. Update 5. I have the consequences of my previous update, and I'm convinced you'll be interested in hearing them. It's not because it's my story. I think you'll objectively want to read this. Let's start with my parents, who are now separated and in the process of getting divorced. Technically, it is my father who has filed for divorce. But in practical terms, it doesn't matter. The marriage has come to an end. My father has left the house, leaving my mother and Nick there. Why did he leave and not them? I don't know, but that is the situation as it stands. What I do know is that he hasn't taken with him the light of his eyes, his little treasure, his reason for existing, which is Nick. He no longer represents any of that for him, Now he is simply the fruit of my mother's infidelity. But if this seems harsh to you, you'd better not imagine what he thinks of his brother. His brother underwent a paternity test, confirming what I mentioned earlier. My mother was really lucky that Nick looked so much like him, because he really isn't my father's son. Although Nick would dearly love it to be so he could call someone dad. His mocking laugh disappeared since that visit to my parents' house, and from what they tell me, it hasn't reappeared. That's why he's desperately looking for his real father. He needs to be able to call someone dad, and for that person to satisfy his every whim. But that will take time, because if my mother slept with men whose phone numbers she doesn't even have, I doubt she'll be able to find out who he is. And even if she does, it's unlikely that anyone will treat him the way my father did when he thought I was his biological son. The confrontation between the brothers also deserves mention, because it ended in a fight with the intervention of my grandparents to separate them. From what I've been told, since I didn't witness the fight, my father was the one who lost after having seriously insulted my uncle. The family doesn't take sides with either of them because they don't know who is worse, the brother or my father, for having rejected 2 children in such a short time. In any case, my relationship with my grandparents isn't much better than with my parents, but that would deserve another publication. Only my mother remains to complete this update. I already mentioned that she lives with my brother, but not that they don't even speak to each other. My brother stays there only because he has no alternative, but he would probably have left if he had options. My mother is also facing a lawsuit from my father for paternity fraud. It would be funny if it weren't so painful for me. Because when I was my father's so-called non-daughter, he not only stayed with her, but he didn't even consider suing her. But now that he has taken Nick from her, this is unforgivable from his perspective. I guess there will be one more update to inform you about the lawsuit and the final consequences, but don't expect it to be soon or long. Update 6. Don't say I didn't warn you. It's been a while and it's a short update, but at least it's something. My father has won the lawsuit against my mother. He still won't talk to his brother or Nick. Nick has tried to contact him, as he still doesn't know who his biological father is, and would like mine to remain his father. The truth is that my father isn't talking to anyone, because none of his relatives have decided to cut off contact with his brother, so he is broken with everyone. My mother has thrown Nick out of the house because she still won't speak to him, which is perhaps why Nick longs to get back at my father. And that's it. Things haven't changed much more in my family, because everything changed radically when I took my revenge.